here's the way that I walked away from this. It's like midway through the third quarter, and I'm sitting there drinking my coffee, just sitting there watching the game, and I'm thinking, how many passing attempts does Sam Hartman have? And at that point, he had I think 18, 19, and we're midway through the third quarter. And I'm like, man, I know that you just scored a touchdown, but you're going to have to start getting him more involved in the passing game. Joe, they did. Mm-hmm. They scored 2 touchdowns. Then at the end, they get conservative. There's so many things that we can talk about. Number one, here's my biggest thing. I think that number one, they coach too conservatively offensively. I cannot walk away from you running the ball at a Notre Dame rate. You ran the ball 39 times last night, Joe, and you threw it 25. In a game like this, you're going to have to open shit up. And they didn't. They let Ohio State stay around. When you go into, I think it was right after they had scored the second touchdown, right? So they're up 14-10. They're coming off a 11-play, 96-yard drive. Sam Hartman completes a 28-yard pass to Greathouse. Sam Hartman completes a pass to Mitchell Evans for 25 yards. And then you go down and score. Joe, that's 2 plays of 50 yards plus that Sam Hartman is sitting back in the pocket and letting that thing rip. Why did you go conservative in the fourth? Why? And then defensively, obviously the biggest blunder, not having 11 players on the field. But is it a big deal? Yes. But, Joe, you gave up a 15-play drive to them for 65 yards and a score. That last play did not dictate you winning or losing. That entire drive did. You have a 4th and 18? Kyle McCord sits in the pocket and hits Mbuka down the field.
3rd and 19 was
3rd and 19. I mean, Notre Dame had so many chances to win this football game and came up short.
It was a lot of coaching not to lose rather than coaching to win. And I said this coming into the week. I really thought that Jared Parker, I think that's the pronunciation, I never get it right. I really thought that Parker was going to come in and say, we've kind of played a little close to our chest here. We're going to open things up. We've got all these receivers that no one's gotten exposure to. We've got all these athletes that no one really talks about, and we're going to spread things out and open things up. I agree with you. I think that they ran the ball really freaking well, and we already knew that they had a good run game. They could pick up 3-4 yards on a 2nd and short, 3rd and short if they needed to. They have the offensive line, the running backs to do so. But to not try and take those shots when it was actually working in the game, there were a number of instances where it worked. They were able to find and connect with some of these athletes that they haven't used already this season. They got to cut that shit out. Next week,
they're not going to, though, Joe. If they're not going to do it, then
we don't know. Okay, we don't know that for sure. We don't know that for sure. Like we need to wait until we see
the way that they've coached the last 2 years. When are they going to finally do it?
It's a different offensive coordinator right now, and maybe they say against Duke. I would hope that if they're reactive enough and smart enough to go back and watch the film and say, you know what, those 25 passing attempts is not enough when we've got a really good quarterback in Sam Hartman. I really wish they could have spread it out a little bit more because they could have easily scored more than 14 points in this game. I really do believe that. I don't take this away. As I said earlier, I don't think that this is a bad loss. I think that they fought their ass off and it just came down to a really stupid final decision where they couldn't get enough guys onto the field. That was what it came down to. And I think that also what killed them, it was that final drive. They got way too cute with trying to call I don't know what it was. They had 2 backs in the backfield. Sam Hartman was trying to get the ball off. JT Tuimoloau was practically unblocked and blows up the play for a 5-yard loss. The previous 2 plays were 2 dominant runs by Estime, who picked up 2 first downs. Why not keep getting him the ball and going back to him? I don't understand why they didn't do that. Marcus Freeman needs to stop coaching like a second-year head coach that is
he is a second-year head coach.
But he needs to stop coaching like that because there's all these other coaches around the country. There's not many, but that have stepped up and made those right decisions. He needs to be more aggressive. They have the ability to be more aggressive. When you're in your second season and you made the mistakes last year that you did being too conservative, you have nothing to lose. Notre Dame shouldn't feel like they have anything to lose. Be more aggressive, and they need to do that against Duke. And I also think, just to add a final point here before I let you chime in, I also think that they should have gone after Kyle McCord more. There were a lot of instances where, that completion percentage, I think, shows that McCord made the throws that he needed to keep the game moving forward, but he was a little shaky in spots. And when they had pressure in his face, he couldn't get the ball off. The ball fluttered out of his hands a number of times when he was getting hit. He is not somebody who physically will stand in the pocket and will deliver a throw while he's getting hit. He's just too young for that. He eventually could be, but he's too young for it. They needed to send more pressure at him because they let him sit back way too much in that game. He was too comfortable.
I've told you this religiously, and I hope that it gets through to you today. Can I tell you what lost you the game? It's very simple.
What?
You went 10 of you allowed Ohio State to go 10 of 17 on third down. It lost you the game. Then Joe, they go forward on fourth down 3 times. They get another one. Okay, so 11 for 20 total. But when you cannot get off the field defensively and you allow them to stay in the game, you're gonna get beat. Like, if there's one stat that I look like, we'll just always religiously look at, how did the team do on third down, on the money down? And Ohio State beat you there because you go 5 for 10 on third down, 50%. Okay. But you're 0 for 2 on fourth down. You legitimately are 5 for 12 on conversion downs. That can't happen. The Sam Hartman quarterback sneak, I know Sam Hartman's a good quarterback. And look, as a former center, I hate even saying this because QB sneaks historically work. Give the ball to Estime.
Yeah.
The bottom line is, I thought, like you mentioned, they coached to lose or coached to not lose the game. Okay. And there in the second half, when they needed Kyle McCord the most, you saw a guy kind of drop his nuts a little bit. Look, that 15-play drive, that throw on 3rd and 19, 4th and 19, whatever it was there at the end, that's a big league throw. It's a big throw and a big-time decision. And even, Joe, we went back and rewatched this multiple times. The play where Ohio State scored on, I don't know what was said. I'm not on the field, so I don't know. But Kyle McCord saw something and was going to a line and checking it like he was checking something into a run play. Identified, got him in the run, they scored, ball game.
I would hope he would make that check. I mean, there was no one on the line of scrimmage. There was literally no bodies on the line of scrimmage. There were 2 guys. It was like a 4-on-2.
Okay, but you know what? Regardless if they did or didn't, he made the right play when they needed him the most. Notre Dame offensively, you know what you're going to get at this point. A lot of running the football, play action. They're going to get some guys out in space. I thought the wide receivers played good enough, but not great. Not to where, Joe, you can win the football game. You can't go into a game against Ohio State and say, hey, we're going to score 14 points and win. I don't give to Rudy Poos that they only scored 17. It doesn't matter to me. You have to go into that game and find ways to generate points. Like, as an example, when you miss a field goal earlier in the game. I think you're 3 of 8 this year, Notre Dame is, on field goal attempts. That's got to get cleaned up. You cannot blame old things. And so this is where you talked about, like, how, in previous years, not just talking about Brian Kelly, that this game might have not been closer. Joe, you're having some of the same issues in philosophy that I begged for Marcus Freeman to change in the offseason. Sam Hartman is a very experienced guy. You got to, at some point, drop your nuts and say, I know that we got Estime. I know that we got, who was the other kid that ran all over?
Jeremiah Love.
Jeremiah Love. That kid was running the ball for like 7 yards a carry. They were dominating him. I get that. But at some point, you got to let Sam Hartman and your quarterback take over the game, because when you did, you had two touchdown drives. That is the game. I don't want to hear about philosophy. I don't want to hear about talent. I don't want to hear about how you looked at this. Ben Morrison looked good against Marvin Harrison Jr. Sounds great. Sounds good. Love that for you as a dear friend of mine. Okay. At some point, you ever seen the movie Major League 2? And no. What?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, well, there's a scene in that movie where a guy who was a free agent from the Japanese league comes in there and he goes up to Pedro Serrano and goes, "You have no," and he's trying to look through his translator book to say balls, but he comes across marbles. He goes, "You have no marbles." At some point, those nuts got to drop. No balls.
Okay.
When you have a drive where Sam Hartman has 100 yards, Joe, what if I told you that a guy had 175 yards passing, and in the 2 touchdown drives that he had 100 of the 175 in those 2 touchdown drives? Maybe you would say, let's throw the freaking rock around.
Okay. Look, I don't disagree with that stuff, but where I think that you don't see eye to eye with me is that I believe that these issues are fully correctable. It's not like we're talking about their offensive line is weak or they've got a deficiency at a certain position group that is unrecoverable.
I didn't say that they weren't correctable.
I know.
I literally just came here and said to drop your nuts.
I know. My point here is that this is why I don't feel that bad about that loss. I feel good about that loss because
I never feel good about loss.
Later on, I know that it's kind of like a defeatist attitude to say that I feel good about a loss, but I think that tells me a lot.
People will sacrifice their firstborn for a. Sorry for interrupting you. Continue.
They have easily correctable issues. They have 3 important games on the remaining stretch of their schedule. Duke next week, they play USC, and they play Clemson. All 3 of those games, I think, are winnable based on what we saw in this game. If you can correct that offensive play calling and decision-making and be more aggressive against USC, against the defense that does not tackle well, that does not rally to the football well, that you can put up some better points instead of 14. But what I learned in this game is despite the offensive issues, that secondary with Benjamin Morrison, with Cam Hart, all of those guys, that defense, the whole defense is good enough to shut down teams with first round wide receivers. They are good enough against any team in the country, in my opinion, to hold them under 20 points. And I don't know how you can't use that game as proof. I understand what you're saying, that this is one of the weaker Ohio State teams. If you think that Kyle McCord's
the best quarterback that you're going to see,
he's not.
There are things that Caleb Williams down the road is going to do that you have not seen. And quite honestly, I'm just going to be real with you. Is Notre Dame probably going to beat the dog shit out of Duke? Probably.
Yes.
Probably.
They're pissed off. They're going to.
More than likely.
And Clemson's lack of receivers, they match up well.
But the Riley kid can run a little bit.
Yeah.
And one thing that I will say of right now, meaning at the time that you played the quarterback, Kyle McCord is arguably the 3rd or 4th best quarterback at the time that you will play them that you will see. Caleb Williams is not going to have the issues that Kyle McCord did if he's throwing the ball 37 times. He won't. He's going to find the open dude. I promise you that.
It's on tape against Utah twice, and I know that one of the times he got hurt. Against Utah and Tulane, that Caleb Williams is
and they
contained.
Still scored 40.
Well, the first Utah game, what was the score of that one? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Besides the point, what I'm getting at here is that if Cam Rising in Utah can beat USC in that first matchup, there are so many takeaways that you can have from that game. They watch the film and figure it out.
But
it's not transitive. It's watch the film, figure out what worked.
Yeah, but you have a quarterback, Joe, that's 21 of 37. It's not as if I would agree with you if he's making throws that are just how am I trying to explain? If he's making throws in tight windows, he wasn't. Not all night. He's missing wide ass open dudes on most of those. Dudes that are wide open. Joe, if I'm Ryan Day this morning, you know what I'm doing? I'm calling 1-800 crossing route, because they should have never gotten away from the mesh in the crossing route. It was eating Notre Dame alive. The two dudes in the middle, the linebackers, when they had issues, the touchdown drive proved it, that when they folded, they found something late. And if you think that Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley can't, you're wrong. I love you to death.
I'm not saying that they're going to guaranteed show up and shut down Caleb Williams, but I'm saying that defense is well coached enough and has the bodies to find a way to win that football game defensively. Offensively, they need to be better. They need to do different things. I just don't think that, and a lot of people are going to do this when that game comes around. A lot of people are going to do the bit, and I'm sure that you're going to do it too, and say USC is going to beat the shit out of Notre Dame. They're going to knock the crap out of them.
I'm not going to say that.